Change a question, change your life. When it comes to planning your life, I want to get you to learn to ask 3 questions now. And the first one is not, what am I going to do? And how many understand why now? Say I. The question you want to ask yourself is, what do I want? What's my outcome? What's my result? The word RPM, the first one, is to get you focused on the target. The target is not the activity. The activity can change. It's what's the result I'm after. If you know exactly what it is you really want, what you desire, what you're really after, clarity is power. The more clear you are on specifically what you want, the faster your brain can get you there. But if you're generally saying things like, what do I want? Well, I want more money. Fine, here's $1, get out of here. Did you achieve the outcome? Yeah, when you're that general, you think you're not getting your goal, you are. The way you language your goal, the way you think about it, you're receiving it. I want to feel a bit better. I want to lose some weight. Fine, you lost a pound, you're done. Because your brain's like a servo mechanism in a bomb and a missile. The old days, you shoot a missile and the target was going, and if you missed the trajectory, you missed it. Today, what happens when the missile's not on course? What happens? It locks on the heat signature, and what does it do? It moves and follows it. That's the way your brain is if it knows the outcome, if it knows the result. So RPM starts with, I got to know the result. This is a results planning system. The rapid planning method, but you can think of it as a results planning system. I need to know the result I'm after before I ever ask myself what to do. That takes more time, but it's worth it. Now, for time's sake, I'm not going to do this with you right now, but I'll tell you what I do when I've taught this to people and I've got a full weekend to do this in. Just to give you a picture. If I asked you right now to write out your name, your full name. Now, some of you abbreviate your signature, but write out your full name in cursive. Go and do that one time. Write out your full name in cursive. I can't even use the word cursive. Is that really the word people still use? It means in handwriting, I guess, but in cursive. Just write it out full name, because you can do this later on. Now, if I had you get with a partner, and you can try this later if you want. I'm just going to tell you because I don't want to take the time because we have such limited time today. And I have your partner say to you with a stopwatch here, okay, ready? And I go, go. And you write it out. And you tell me when you're done. I go, stop. And I write down how long that was. So let's say you wrote out your signature and it took 5 seconds. And then I say, ready? Write it out. Ready? Go. You tell me when you're done. Stop. And I write down 5 seconds. I have to do that 10 times. You'll find in the beginning, you'll be, let's say, 6 seconds. I'm making it up. Everybody's signature is different. And you probably might get down to as little as 5 seconds. If you have like an iPhone, you could do it as a digital stopwatch. You could see the milliseconds. Then I say to you, I want you guys to write every other letter in cursive. In other words, you're going to write half as many letters. How long do you think it would take to do it? Half as much time? Most of you, it'll take twice as much time in the beginning, and then eventually, what's interesting is, if I do it 10 times, and the last 2 or 3, and this makes no logical sense, and again, I don't want to take the time to have all of you do this 10 times, 10 times, 10 times, but you can go do it on your own, I'll just tell you the result. In most cases, even though you're doing half as many letters, you cut it by 2/3 the time. There's something happens when you break an old pattern and you do it fresh. Your brain over the years has learned ways to move more rapidly since when you did your original signature, and you'll do it in 1/3 the amount of time. It'll take twice as much at first, and then it'll cost you 1/3 amount of time. Now let me tell you why I'm telling you this. The system I'm calling the rapid planning method, by the time I show it to you, you're going to go, this takes more time than just making my to-do list. It will win. When will it take more time? When? Initially. But once you get it in your nervous system, it'll take you less time because your brain will be thinking in outcomes and not activities. And when you think in terms of outcomes and not activities, pretty soon, some of the activities in your list you don't even need to do to get the outcome. You find a better way to get the outcome quicker. Now, how do you do that? Yes, 3 questions. Question 1, what is my result? What is my outcome? What is it I really, truly want from this? If you're going back next week, and you say this next week, what are the most important what? Outcomes for me to get this week in my business? And you just write those outcomes out, not your action items, the outcomes. If you do that and nothing else, you'll be ahead of the game. And if you just keep looking at those outcomes every day, how am I doing on that outcome? Your brain will come up with ways to get to that outcome. I promise you. Focus on outcomes, not on activities. Action for most people, activities, most people may mistake movement for achievement. They mistake action items and to-dos for achievement. We're after the achievement. Are you with me on this? Yes or no? Yes. It's a different way of thinking, and I think all of you inherently have it, But if you make this ritualized, just like the things you've learned this week, they're all great, but if you don't systematize them, they'll work when you do them. But if you systematize them, right, and you see like Mr. Hallman here, where he goes in and just does it and makes sure it's being done again, or what you've seen Chet do, or what I do. You just do it over and over again, you don't miss it. Now the results are geometric. So I want to get you to systematize the thinking, whether you do it visually the way I'm going to show you or not. So, first question, what's the result I'm after? What's the ultimate result? What do I want out of this week, out of this thing, out of my business, out of my life, for my body? And you want to be as what as possible when you describe that outcome, that result. As what? As clear and specific as possible. Generalities will confuse you. So it might take you longer than just writing down call so-and-so to think, if I'm calling my son, I'm going to call Jarek, or I'm going to call my brother. This is what goes through my head before I call him, always. What's my outcome? Because I don't want to just call him. I want Jarek to feel loved by his dad. Or I'm thinking about what's my outcome. I've got to talk to him about this thing that's out there. I've got to make sure I get through to him on this because I want to guide him and move him in this direction. That's what I want to be as his father. I don't want to just chit-chat. I can do that too. So if you think before every phone call, before every time you're planning your day, and you think before you have any meeting, what do you think the first thing I ask of anyone when we sit down in a meeting is? Okay, what are your outcomes? What are the outcomes for this meeting? First thing I want to know, because if I know the outcomes, guess what? A lot of meetings, they're done pretty quick. Because if I know the outcome, you don't have to go through all the activities to sell me on it. Just, that's your outcome? How do you want to do it? Sounds good to me. Rock. That's how you make a meeting productive. I know a meeting's productive not by the hours or time. Sometimes it takes longer to the outcome than you want, but I'm going to get the outcome. That's, by the way, what you see with me on stage. That's why my times vary. It's based on an outcome. I'm going to get that outcome. I don't give a damn whether it's the right time or not. I want to do it in that time, but I must deliver the outcome. How many get that? And by the way, how many like to have your company focused on outcomes, results, and not activities? Say I. People say all the time, well, did you get that done? Well, I left them an email. I left them a voicemail. I've sent them 3 emails. How many times have you heard that? When that happens with me, I'm like, but I don't show it. I just like, really? Wow, that's fascinating. We'll explain about our culture. It's about getting the result. So I can help you if you can't figure another way to do it, but there may be 12 other things we might want to do. Maybe they don't have the answer. Maybe somebody else can give us the answer. The outcome was to get this information, not to leave an email or 12 or 3 voicemails. That will not do any of us any good. How many follow? Now, whether you get the outcome or not, whether you get that result, will be based first, do you have clarity?
So before speaking about the first habit, I want to bring to your attention a new mindset. So before I read this book, I never really had this super awesome outlook on life, and in fact, it changed my thinking forever. So when you're in any situation in life, you can choose to be reactive or proactive. But the basic idea is that by choosing to be proactive, you choose to increase your circle of influence. You see, there are things that you can control and there are things you can't directly control, such as the weather, where you were born, or your personal decisions of your boss. Things that you can control include how you react to it. This is really the only thing you can control in life. If you react without thinking, or you say a harsh word to your friend, or you drink all night and live in self-indulgence after a long day, or you just become depressed when the weather is gloomy, you are becoming a reactive person. You let the environment control you, and you're simply a person reacting to stimuli. When you are reactive, you focus on things you cannot control. For example, you may have been born into a socioeconomic lower or middle class family. You may have been born into an abusive family. You may even been diagnosed with a terrible illness. But focusing on it will not change it. You know what you can control? This is the secret to being proactive, and in turn becoming an effective person. You can control your work ethic. You can control how you treat the people in your life, and you can control if you put on your seatbelt or not. By focusing on things that you can control, you bring more power into your life and widen your circle of influence. So in short, reactive people are people who complain a lot instead of actually going out and changing their actions, and proactive people understand that even if their complaining was justified, complaining about it wouldn't change anything. It would just be negative toxins in their life, polluting their social environment of their peers. See, most people choose to complain simply because it's easier. So let's move on to the second habit. How do you want people to think of you at your funeral? The second habit is all about becoming the person you want to be by thinking deeply about how other people think of you. Now, I'm a mature enough person to not really care what most people think of me, but I do care what my loved ones think of me. I want my girlfriend to think I'm loyal, trustworthy, and fun to be around. And because of this, I'm not going to cheat on her, I'm not going to lie to her, and I'm not going to fill our conversations with complaints or negative thoughts. See, when you die and there's a crowd of people standing around your coffin, what will they say? What will their best memories of you or their worst memories of you be? Think about the end before any major decision, and this will help you become a more effective person. Do you want to be remembered as a person who added value to society? Maybe start filling your Facebook statuses with more positivity and upbeat content. Basically, are you doing the things that allow you to say you've become the person that you want to be? The second habit also goes into creation a bit. See, according to Stephen Covey, the author, everything is created twice. Once in the mind, and once in the physical, real world. The problem is that many things are created in the mind, but are never manifested into tangible things because we tell ourselves, I can't do it. A lot of time, the only thing stopping you from doing something is yourself. An even worse situation is when things aren't even created in the mind at all. For some people, debt, drugs, despair, or other life problems prevent a person from thinking about creation, and only on the negative outcomes of their situation. And this is where the first habit comes back. Stop focusing on what you can't control, and you'll be able to create more. You'll be able to add more value to the world. The last thing Stephen Covey mentions in this chapter is something called a personal mission statement. Now, this is a one-line sentence that you can rely on to give you a sense of purpose in the world. A very simple mission statement is, I want the world to be better because I was here. In fact, that's Will Smith's personal mission statement. Oprah wants to be a teacher and to be known for inspiring my students to be more than they thought they ever could be. If you keep this mission statement in mind when you make every decision, you will always keep the end in mind. Now that we've talked about the end, let's talk about the beginning. So Stephen Covey came up with this thing called the urgent and important matrix. Basically, everything you can do falls into one of 4 categories. Here's a super easy graphic that can make it easier to understand. Basically, anything urgent is something that needs to be done as soon as possible, and anything important is something that makes us effective. The advice the author gives is to do things that are not urgent, but they have to be important as soon as possible. Because if you do things that aren't urgent before they are urgent, then you won't have to fret about doing them last minute. Here's the thing that kind of annoys me. If I asked most people what they thought was important, they would say things like their health, their relationships, their financial credibility. But when you look into their actions, they spend their time doing other meaningless things like organizing papers, going out for long lunches, hanging out with the wrong crowds, fussing over little crap, doing stupid stuff for the better part of their day that doesn't lead them to bettering the things that they said was important to them. So you gotta put first things first. Spend some time with your family before you waste your time doing something like playing video games. Start putting effort into creating a monthly budget instead of putting your effort pinning new things on Pinterest. Go and work out first before watching that new episode. The problem here is something psychologists call cognitive dissonance, and it's when the things you say are most important to you aren't the same things that you're spending most of your time on. In fact, some psychologists say that this is unhealthy. The disconnect between what we say we will do and what we actually do is terrible, and I think working on this would improve a lot of our lives. So the first 3 habits are about managing yourself and what you can do independently. There are things you can make changes, mindsets you can alter, and attitudes you can adjust to. They set the foundation for the next 3 habits, which have to do with becoming an effective person in society and involve being dependent. So the 4th habit is called Think Win-Win. Stephen Covey says that there are 6 types of relationships, and you can think of them as personal, business, or even biological animalistic relationships. The first 2 are what most people think the world is made of: lose-win or win-lose, which means for me to win, you have to lose, or the other way around. People with this type of mentality think that to have the largest skyscraper in the neighborhood, they must tear all the other skyscrapers down. You should avoid these situations because someone will lose, even if the net gain is 0. In fact, most people don't even agree to this unless they believe in reciprocal altruism in the long run. Win-lose is like a parasite, where one wins and the other loses. The next relationship that we're going to talk about is just toxic and nasty. It's called lose-lose. The best example I can think of is there's a story where this couple got married. A couple years later, they decided to get divorced, but the man knew that his ex-wife would win half of everything that he owned in court. But he had quite the ego, and he didn't want her getting his Ferrari or Lamborghini, so he sold them both for $10 each. See, both people in this situation lost a substantial amount of value because of their hatred, and you should definitely avoid any type of relationship like this. Now, the next 2 relationships are not bad, but they should also be avoided. Solely win relationships aren't really a relationship at all, since they only affect one person. People in this type of relationship don't care what anyone else gets as long as they get what they want. It's actually very selfish. Now, the next relationship is called no deal. Now, no deal is a neutral mentality, and it's actually the most preferable one if the last one is not offered. Basically, each individual agrees that if both parties don't win, there is no deal. In other words, it's completely unselfish. If I can't get what I want without you benefiting too, it's not worth it and there's no deal. Now, the next relationship we're going to talk about is called win-win, and these happen in couple relationships or business relationships and even in ecology. Mutualistic relationships or symbiosis is a term when two animals benefit from living together. For you to win, the other person does not have to lose. I could buy and read a book that gives me huge insight into a recent problem I'm dealing with, and because of this, I benefit from the advice and the author benefits from the money. I can make a video and upload it to YouTube and benefit from the advertisement revenue, and the viewers will benefit from the life-changing perspective. So start searching for win-win relationships, and you will surely become an effective person. Aha, the next habit. I love this habit. So the author gives a little story where a dad is talking to his coworker about a situation with his son. The father and son have a talk, and after the talk, the dad goes to his friend for advice. "I just can't understand my son sometimes," the dad says. "He won't listen to me." And his friend goes, "Let me rephrase that. You can't understand your son because he won't listen to you?" Says the friend, "I thought to understand another person, you have to listen to them." Honestly, when I read this little story, I actually got goosebumps, but the author is so right. How many times do we get mad at another person because they don't think the way that we think, but we haven't even tried to hear their side of the story first? We see the world through our eyes. Even from a baby, we are born egotistical, and understanding others' views does not come natural. Learning to become an effective person is understanding everyone has their own perspectives and opinions from their own personal experiences and life events. You should seek first to understand, because once you understand the situation and the person's feelings towards it, you might have a better chance of helping them understand you. So this is a little technical, but I want to get into the 5 levels of listening that Covey covers. The first is called ignoring, and it's just downright rude. So the second level is the kind of level my sister talks to my mom. It's called pretending. Yeah, right. You're at least responding to the person. The third level is called selective hearing. We only hear certain parts of the conversation, usually only the parts that benefit us. And it's really easy to do this with someone who talks a lot, or a preschool child. Another level up is called attentive listening, which is not necessarily listening to the content, but rather the way the words are being spoken. And you focus on the energy. If you listen to a motivational speaker in another language and you actually get motivated, that's called attentive listening. The last type of listening we hardly ever experience, and it's called empathic listening. This type of listening is the listening with the intent to understand. You will get inside the other person's frame of thinking and understand them better. And it's not just the words they say or how they're saying them either. We give them all of our attention, including paying attention to their body language and paying attention to their feelings. This is very powerful because it gives you accurate data to work with, to understand their thoughts, feelings, and motives, instead of you being a brick wall saying, "Conform to me." Another form of great advice Stephen gives is to diagnose before you prescribe, which basically means to understand before you give advice. One of the best ways to find more win-win situations is to understand what the other person wants and needs before you can find a way both of you can benefit. So the next habit is called synergize, and it took me a while to completely understand this, but it basically means the interaction of 2 or more parts to produce an outcome that is greater than the sum of their individual parts. So a very basic version of synergy comes from a teaching in physiology. So one part might be our heart, another might be your brain, and the third might be your stomach. Of course, these are very complex organs individually, but if they work together, they are extremely effective. Another example would be trees and squirrels. Separately, trees could reproduce by their nuts falling to the ground. Please refrain from commenting about this, but unless there's a really strong wind, they won't spread very quickly. On the other hand, squirrels could live without trees, but they would have to live in bushes and eat only berries. But they might struggle hibernating and eating food in the winter. Together, though, the squirrels get protections in the trees, as well as tons of nuts to eat. The trees get the benefit of getting their nuts spread across even more land. Together, they achieve and grow more than if they were separate. And one last example would be drugs and alcohol. Now, the effect of sleeping medicine is intensified greatly when mixed with alcohol, and I do not suggest trying this on your own. And in fact, most doctors warn against it. Now, these are considered constructive synergy, but there is also reductive synergy. An example of this is if you had the plague, but then you were also diagnosed with depression. Both are really bad to have, and if you have them at the same time, well, you might need some external help. In medicine, there's actually a word for this, and it's called comorbidity. The opposite of synergy can also happen, sometimes referred to as negative synergy, and this is when waste is created. Let's say you spend $5 million on a business deal, and another company puts in $5 million so that you both can invest in the same company for more money. However, the business that you put money in actually failed because it went over a certain amount, and because of taxes, it failed. The sum of two parts is actually less than the total amount of both separately. An example of negative synergy would be 1 + 1 = 1/2. Seeking synergy will benefit your life in many ways, but particularly your business, relationships, and general life will benefit if you can find synergy. Synergy is basically 1 + 1 = 3. Now that was the 6th habit, and that concludes the habits that you can do with improving yourself by dealing with others. Now we're going to be moving on how you can unleash your future potential by investing. So the best investment you can make is in yourself. And by reading this book, you're ahead of the curve. And by watching this video, you have a huge advantage of other people. So Covey gives the example of this guy cutting down a tree with a very dull saw. I mean, it's going to take him at least 6 hours to cut down this huge tree. If he were to spend 1 hour sharpening the saw, it would only take him 3 hours to cut down the tree, leading to a total of 4 hours instead of 6. We see how simple this is. How easy it is for the guy to cut the tree down faster, but we hardly ever apply the same principle to our lives. For example, we can sharpen our physical saw by eating well, maintaining a healthy diet, and exercising regularly. Let's sharpen the saw by working out 3 times a week instead of paying for it with advanced medical treatment in 40 years. Another example of sharpening our minds is by learning, reading, and teaching. There are plenty of studies that show teaching someone something is a great way to ingrain ideas into our head. And in fact, it's one of the reasons I'm making this video. Instead of reading the instruction manual, we try to do it ourselves and waste 3 hours when we could have humbled ourselves and sharpened our mental saw. Covey also suggests sharpening some other areas of our life, such as emotional and spiritual areas. You can invest in your relationships with others in many ways, some of which include spending time with your friends, playing games with your family, or studying with classmates. Enriching your spiritual life is also important. Whether you're religious or not, listening to music, engaging in creating art, and spending time in prayer or meditation will always add value to your life in the long run. Living a meaningful and effective life doesn't just happen. You have to make time to cultivate the areas of your life you want to produce fruits, and you do this by sharpening the saw. I hope after watching this video you've gained at least one gold nugget of knowledge or practical life advice that may move you in the right direction to becoming a more effective person. If you like this video, please leave a big fat like, and if you want more educational and valuable life improving videos like this, then subscribe. Thanks for watching.
You cannot win the war against the world if you can't win the war against your own mind. Self-discipline is the center of all material success. 99% of people are not willing to do what it takes to make their dreams come true. The Marines have a saying, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. And that's just real. At the center of bringing any dream into fruition is self-discipline. Something as simple as food and eating is not about your body as much as it is about your mind. It's getting command of your mind to be able to choose actions that are in your own best interest.
A lot of people are just trying to change. A lot of times, like I just did a podcast on habits, right? How to be able to adopt new habits and also delete and get rid of, break bad habits, right? And so a lot of people always want to usually make a change on behavior. They want to get themselves to work out. They want to get themselves to meditate. They want to get themselves to read more each day. They want to get themselves to X, right? Or they want to stop some behavior. They want to stop smoking. They want to stop eating this food. They want to stop. I always tell people, stop checking your phone the first hour of the day. You've heard this many times, right? You win the first hour of the day, you win the day.
Every day, we are choosing shit that's not in our own best interest, right? So if the world is attacking you and the world wants to fight you and the world's trying to hold you down, so you're gonna kick yourself in the balls? So you're gonna stop yourself from getting what you dream.
When I want to transform or transcend or make a real positive change, I'm looking at all the other areas of ourself. So I'm looking at, for example, our environment. Are people setting up their environment to win? So change doesn't just happen at this level of behavior, but what you have to change the environment. So for example, if you want to stop eating a certain food, it helps to be able to have not have that food in your home, right? So you change the environment.
In life, we must all suffer one of two pains: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. I'm asking you, choose wisely.
So whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in life, the critical component is getting things done, and getting things done in a systematic way. Building the character that's associated with getting things done in a systematic way requires that you become disciplined.
And if we live a lazy, undisciplined life, and we just give in to our feelings, and we act on these emotional impulses, we're going to make very poor choices that we regret later on. We would be much better off to just discipline ourselves right now so that later on we don't have to carry that heavy load of regret.
I think a lot of people suffer from decision-making fatigue, right? And this is very strong research saying that you can only make a certain amount of good decisions a day. And after that is spent, you can't anymore. And that's really been fine-tuned in the medical field with surgeons and such in terms of seeing their, where they're making their errors and stuff with early on in the day or later in their days and stuff like that. But we all, as entrepreneurs or as employees and executives or as parents, we all can make a certain amount of decisions. And that's why, people like Mark Zuckerberg or Tony Hsieh, they wear the same t-shirts and sweatshirts all the time because they don't want to spend, use up one of their decisions thinking, oh, what am I going to wear today? Right? And so my goal is to streamline my life, put the routines, the first hour of the day and the last hour of the day, I really micromanage to the point where it's habitual. I don't even have to think about it. And then, because those are the times of the day where I can really have the most impact, because later on in the middle of the day, team members need this, there's firefighting this, client needs that. But the first hour, the last hour, I really want to control. So all this really helped develop grit and resilience, in my body so I could have the ability to persevere. And also I stand guard to my brain all the time, what goes in. I don't watch like a lot of the negative news and all the market. I really focus, I watch and I listen to your show and maybe a handful of little things I read each day because I need to keep it positive. I want hope and I'm looking for help. I'm looking for inspiration and also instruction.
Self-discipline is the definition of self-love. When you say that you love yourself, that means that you have behavior towards yourself that is love. Like you say to yourself, hey man, look, I know you want to eat that pizza and it'll be really good, but I can't let you eat that, man, because if you eat that pizza, you're gonna feel like shit. And I love you too much to let you eat that. And I think the word discipline has kind of gotten a bad name. We think about it in terms of punishment. I'm not talking about discipline in that way. I'm talking about discipline in the sense that you forego immediate pleasure for the exchange of long-term self-respect. Self-love is when you say to yourself, man, look, I know you and that girl got a real connection. I know y'all vibe, but that's your girl's cousin. So I love you too much to let you do that. Self-love is, hey, look, I know you got a test on Monday, I know you really want to go out with your friends. It's Saturday night, you want to go out, but if you fail that test, you're not going to feel good about yourself. I love you too much to let you go out tonight. Self-discipline is self-love. If you want to be happy, you have to love yourself, which means you have to discipline your behavior. The road to sustained happiness is through disciplining your behavior.